Oppo recently added a new phone to its A series called the A7 that promises better battery life and good cameras. Now at nearly 17,000 rupees, it does have some pretty tough competition from the likes of Xiaomi, Realme and even Nokia. Let's find out if it's worth the asking price. The A7 features a water drop notch design which makes it look quite modern. The plastic body has a matte finish on the sides and a laminated back with a textured pattern underneath. The latter looks good, especially on a glaring gold trim, when light hits it at certain angles. The A7 is a big phone when you hold it, but thankfully at 168 grams it is fairly light. There's a pre-applied scratch guard on the display, but it gets in the way when you swipe in from the sides, which isn't a very good feeling. The SIM slot can accommodate 2 nano SIMs and a dedicated micro SD card. The phone also supports dual 4G with VoLTE. The 6.2-inch LCD display has good brightness and colors, but the resolution is only HD+, which is disappointing, especially at this price. Now as a result, icons and text appear a little soft and edges have a bit of jaggedness if you go looking for it. Overall though, it's not bad, but it's still lagging behind the competition. The water drop notch gives you more screen space on the top, but you also forfeit the notification LED. The bezels around the display are fairly slim, but the chin is quite thick. All the ports are placed at the bottom, which include the micro USB port, a 3.5mm headphone socket, and the microphone. Around the back, we have a dual camera module, LED flash, and the fingerprint sensor. The latter is quick at authentication. There's Face Unlock too, which works very well, just like we've experienced on recent phones like the Realme 2 Pro and the Realme U1, both of which also have ColorOS. Now at nearly 17,000 rupees, we were typically expecting a Snapdragon 636 or even the MediaTek Helio P60 at the very least. Unfortunately, the A7 has a Snapdragon 450, which not only is quite old right now, but it is usually found in phones under 10,000 rupees. As some consolation, the phone comes with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. However, the generous helping of RAM doesn't really help much when it comes to actual performance. Benchmark performance isn't anything to write home about either. Now the Oppo A7 runs on ColorOS 5.2, which is based on Android 8.1 Oreo, and it even has a fairly recent November 2018 security patch. Notifications can now be swiped away in one go, and you get new features like O-roaming, which lets you subscribe to affordable data packs when you travel abroad, and Smart Scan, which lets you shoot and convert text into an editable form, and even have it translated to different languages. You get plenty of other shortcuts and gestures too, like Smart Sidebar, which is a tray with app shortcuts which can be accessed from any app with a simple gesture. The only main annoyance is the news flashes from the default browser and ads from Oppo's App Store, which keep popping up in the notification shade. Now we managed to disable the pop-ups from the App Store, however we didn't have the same luck with the browser despite opting out of this in the settings and even force closing the app. The Oppo A7 runs general apps and simple games well, but even with 4GB of RAM, we didn't have a very smooth and consistent experience. There is a bit of lag when switching between apps, and even simple tasks like taking a screenshot takes a second longer than it typically should. The phone does run quite cool even when streaming videos or playing a game, which is good. Now, heavier titles like PUBG Mobile and Shadowgun Legends are also playable, but on the lowest settings. The single speaker gets decently loud, but the sound quality is tinny and not too pleasing for music or movies. The cameras on the Oppo A7 are pretty standard, and once again there's little to get excited about. It has a 13-megapixel primary sensor and a second 2-megapixel sensor for depth sensing. Now autofocus speeds are relatively slow since there's no PTAF, but under good light and if you're steady, the A7 shoots decent landscape shots. HDR kicks in automatically too, which is nice. Macros look fairly good with nice saturated colors. In portrait mode, the edge detection is decent, but the final effect isn't always spot on. The camera really struggles in low light though. The speed of focusing drops and the narrow aperture doesn't really let enough light in for a bright image. You also have to wait a couple of seconds before the camera locks focus, else you end up with a slightly soft shot. Details are weak and colors appear a bit mushy. The front 16-megapixel selfie camera can capture some fairly vivid shots in daylight, but is quite average under low light. There is AI beautification mode too, but it can be quite aggressive in smoothing your skin. Video recording tops out at 1080p, and while the quality is decent under daylight, there's no electronic stabilization. The camera app offers other standard shooting modes too, like stickers, panorama, and time-lapse. The Oppo A7 has the same battery as its predecessor and offers excellent battery life. The 4230 mAh capacity lasted for 19 hours and 43 minutes in our loop test, which is very good. With regular use, we managed to easily go nearly 2 days before having to charge it. Now there's no fast charging, but the 10-watt adapter fully charges the battery in about 2.5 hours. It's difficult to love the Oppo A7 as sadly, it doesn't really bring anything new or fresh to the table. Battery life is the phone's only strong point, but honestly, even that's not worth the near 17,000 rupee asking price. The A7 would have been a good addition to the sub 10,000 rupee segment, but at its current pricing, it feels completely out of place. We think you'd be better off with any of the other options like the Vivo V9 Pro, Xiaomi Mi A2, Redmi Note 6 Pro, or even the Nokia 6.1 Plus at this price. So thanks for watching our review of the Oppo A7, and for all things tech, log on to gadgets360.com.